Hello and welcome to what is broadly a WightWanderer video, but in essence is a little different, because today I won't be focusing as much on the history of the island but more on its future. To be more specific, the future of its public transport system. Now you can probably tell by the title of the video the subject to which I'm alluding to, and it is a subject, it is an issue which has been brought up many a time since the closure of the railway in 1966. It does crop up every now and then, and it may also come as no surprise that I am in favour of the reinstatement of the line to Ventnor. And of course I can be accused of bias on this subject because I am a bit of a railway nerd. So to combat this today, I will be removing my reminiscent spectacles. After all, the line did shut in 1966 because it was deemed unsustainable at the time. Nostalgia plays little to no part in sustainability. If we remove the nostalgia effect though from the equation, I still maintain that the argument to reinstate the railway to Ventnor holds up just as strong. And to prove this, hopefully, in this video I will be giving you arguments not from the past, but rather from the present and the future. Now, if you watched the first episode of WightWanderer's Disused Railway series, you may have noticed there was a segment at the end of that video in which I sat on top of a down above Ventnor station and said it was unlikely that the line would be rejoined to Ventnor anytime soon because it wasn't economically viable. I bear no shame though in contradicting myself on that point, because in light of recent events in the Ventnor area, I don't just think now it's economically viable, but in fact essential to our public transport system. And with that extensive dialogue out of the way, let's crack on. The topic of reopening the railway into Ventnor in fact resurfaced as recently as 2020, when the council conducted a survey into reinstating the line and the one into Newport. The 7-page proposal focused on both railways, which I believe is problematic in itself, but that's something I will come back to later on. Here's why I think a railway into Ventnor is so important. Ventnor is a town on the south coast of the island, boasting a population of over 5,500 residents. It is a popular seaside resort with an important heritage, a wonderful beach, great shops, pubs and restaurants, likened by some tourists to destinations on the Mediterranean coast. The town itself sits on the side of the hill, shadowed by St Boniface Down, and because of its placement, it relies on sharply curved and steeply inclined roads as transport links to other towns, such as Wroxall and Shanklin. Now, these routes are essential to motorists along the southeast coast of the island, as well as tourists and commuters on the number 3 bus, one of only 2 bus services that serve Ventnor, and by far the most frequent. The geology of the land around Ventnor has for long been an issue, with landslips being a common occurrence. The area of St Boniface Down itself geologically consists of mainly chalk, but between the hard chalk and the sea itself sits a layer of what is known as gold clay, much of which Upper Ventnor is built on, and more importantly lays beneath many of the main roads in and out of town. Now, as foundations go, clay is not the best substance to build a town on. And of course this issue has led to quite a few landslips over the years. One of the most notable happened in 2014 under Undercliff Drive, one of the main routes between Ventnor and Knighton. After a series of bad weather and multiple landslips, the road was completely severed. The most recent one though, and probably the most relevant to this video, is one that happened just over a month ago on the 10th of December 2023. Around 9 PM that evening, a vast chunk of land located just west of Bonchurch and the famous Devil's Chimney completely collapsed 60 feet into Steel Bay, taking the car and the storage unit with it. As much as 40 gardens were also affected in the slide. Miraculously, the Smuggler's Haven Cafe narrowly escaped the abyss, teetering on the edge, perhaps to put into perspective just how large and dangerous this landslip was. Incredibly, no one was injured, but this recent slip highlighted a pressing issue. as Leeson Road itself, the busiest of all the routes in and out of Ventnor, now finds itself dangerously close to the unstable edge. Leeson Road was closed, and though plans are afoot to reopen it, at the present time it remains closed to all through traffic, meaning that the town's main commuter artery has been severed. The land around it still remains dangerous and somewhat unstable. Even if the road could be reopened, chances are it won't be long before Leeson Road suffers the same fate as Undercliff Drive. And then there were two main roads left running into Ventnor, half the amount that there were just over a decade ago. That is not the end of the issue though, because recently, just over the other side of town, one of those remaining roads has started to show signs of subsidence. This part of the B3327, the main road between Ventnor and Wroxall, has recently been subject to closures due to, of course, land movement, dips and cracks appearing in the road's surface. It is becoming clear just how unstable the ground around Upper Ventnor is becoming, exacerbated by the influx of diverted traffic, including bus services. Because of this, it is quite possible that in the near future, Ventnor could be left with only one main road serving it, when 11 years ago there were 4. We have to consider now not only how maintainable the road connections are, but also how safe they are. Especially Leeson Road, which, if you permit me to be a bit crude, I wager will not be able to support vehicles for much longer, especially the bus services. So what is the solution? Well, we need to ease the strain of transport in and out of Ventnor and maintain the little amount of road connection it will soon have. Therefore, we need a public transport system that doesn't rely on the tight, twisty, unstable clay surface. We need a direct route straight through the sturdy chalk of St Boniface Down. Whilst we're at it, why not provide a faster, more economically friendly transport service? Why not supply modern, comfortable commuter access to this wonderful part of the island, whilst minimising the amount of geological decay? I think you could probably get a hint as to where I'm going with this. Above Ventnor, in an old chalk quarry, is the former site of the Ventnor railway station, closed in 1966. It is now a business park, but funnily enough, the railway tunnel through the chalk of St Boniface Down is still there, currently being used by Sun and Water. The tunnel itself is said to be in good condition and, most importantly, dry. Still, some people may have reservations about using a tunnel that hasn't seen a train since the 60s. But think of it this way. If you've travelled on the Island Line, chances are you've passed through Ryde Tunnel. Let's compare them, shall we? Ryde Tunnel is double track, built into sandy clay ground, supporting the foundations of many buildings and busy roads in and out of town. Also prone to flooding, as we saw again in the autumn of last year, due to it being constructed below the sea level. And I'm sure that none of the commuters that use the Island Line ever suspect that they are in any danger. Well, Ventnor Tunnel was built only about 15 years earlier. It has been maintained by Sun and Water, bored through chalk. It is dry and not as prone to erosion or flooding. Therefore, it is just as safe, if not safer, than the aforementioned one at Ryde. So hopefully that renders that concern obsolete. I'm not going to sit here and pretend though that the task of rebuilding this railway will be in any way straightforward. Here are some of the obvious obstacles I can see straight away. First off, we'd have to reinstate Landguard Manor Road Bridge. This would mean a height restriction on the traffic underneath it, which in turn would mean the rerouting of the number 2 bus, probably through the town. The access road to Lower Hyde Holiday Park would also have to be adapted to accompany the railway. Much of the trackbed from there to Wroxall though is still in good condition. Here at Wroxall, the placement of this shed would be an issue to overcome. And then of course, you would need a level crossing to traverse Station Road, which, despite its name, wasn't actually constructed until the railway closed in 1966. Between Station Road and the north portal of the tunnel, private land would have to be repurchased and adapted back to its previous form. Then you come to the trackbed under Manor Road Bridge, which has subsequently been partially filled in. Extensive earth movement and reinforcement of the cutting would then be necessary in order for the route to be usable. Then we come to the tunnel. In good condition it may be, but it does currently house a water pipe. Lastly, we come to the trackbed itself, which between Shanklin and Wroxall is now a beloved cycle track used by many a wanderer or cyclist. This would have to be narrowed or rerouted, though there is one now barren route that could be a possible answer. Leeson Road, once the busiest road in and out of Ventnor, now nothing more than a glorified footpath. And perhaps that is the solution to where to reroute the cycle track when we reinstate the railway, of course with residential vehicle access. Just a thought. Okay, perhaps I'm getting a little carried away here, so let's reel it back in. There's no hiding that this task would be an enormous undertaking, and for sure would be expensive. We have to also consider the politics of our railway system, as the government is currently in the process of nationalising the railways. Hopefully this will have a positive effect, but it's too soon to say for sure. One thing is for sure though, reinstating this line won't be simple. Having said all that though, what is the alternative? Because the only one I can see is a constant temporary solution. We can throw all the money we want at rerouting the roads, but later down the line, not too far in the future, they will be subject to the same fate. Or we could reinstate the railway, using the resources and infrastructure that is already there, and give Wroxall and Ventnor the fast, reliable, economically viable, permanent transport solution it so desperately needs. Wherever the railway goes, the people go. The journey time from Ryde to Ventnor could potentially be as short as 40 minutes. The railway itself and its construction would generate a much needed rise in job opportunities on the island, as well as easier travel for workers commuting between destinations that the railway serves. The wonderful areas of Wroxall and the iconic Appuldurcombe House would see a boost in tourism, as well as Ventnor, where the railway could aid the regeneration of the town centre. A better rail connection means more footfall to the town, and therefore more money for the local businesses, without the frustration of extra traffic for the already busy roads to handle. Railways are also by far the most economically friendly way to travel. It is estimated that by 2050, all city-to-city rail systems in the UK will be powered by electricity, meaning that in Britain, the train will become increasingly sustainable as a mode of transport in the future. Let's not forget though why this is such a pressing issue, because Ventnor couldn't just do with a transport alternative, it needs a transport alternative. And very soon, there may be no choice. Perhaps then we need a new proposal, taking into account the recent events. And unlike the proposal of 2020, one that focuses solely and specifically on the prospect of reopening the Ventnor line, instead of bundling the idea in with the plan to open other railways as well, such as the Ryde to Newport line, which is far less viable and far more unlikely to materialise. The Ventnor Railway regeneration is a proposition that needs to be the sole intention and deserves sole attention. Anyway, I hope I've given you a little bit of food for thought. Next time, I will be reverting to type, back to my usual modus operandi, sitting on top of a hill, pointing at stuff and telling you how old it is. Thank you very much for watching as always, and we will see you again very soon. All the best.